Sometimes talking with friends feels like role-playing. Sometimes it feels like combat. Join us at the Round Table and Roll Initiative. This is Curmudgeons and Dragons.
Hello, adventurers! Welcome back to another Curmudgeons and Dragons. My name is Jason Portizo, and once again, I am joined by Mr. Jim Crocker.
Hey, how we doing?
And that's it today. Me and Jim today.
Yep.
And that's how you know today we're doing DMAcademy. If this is your first DMAcademy, hello. But what we're going to do, we're going to go through Reddit's r/DMAcademy and look for posts that are they're asking for advice. Every now and again, we'll find someone that's offering advice, but posts that are asking for advice, and we'll see if we can help them out a little bit. That being said, I'm ready to jump in. Jim, you ready to jump in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's jump in. All right, our first story is posted by user Aynaeg, Aynaeg. No way I'm pronouncing that one right. Title is, My Players Believe Everything My NPCs Say. What do I do? My players never question what my NPCs are saying. They've gotten themselves into difficult situations because of that. One of the PCs almost died because of that. One time, even an undead person who they knew doesn't care for PCs gave them wrong information, which got them caught by an opposing faction, and the players immediately assumed that the undead person was badly informed and he wasn't in the wrong, because how should he have known? I told my players time and time again that sometimes the NPCs are lying or hide information. It frustrates me that they never question any NPC. Maybe it comes down to me being a very good liar, but it baffles me that my players never question anything my NPCs say. Is there a way to make my players start questioning my NPCs every now and then? Or should I let them continuously run into problems when they don't question even the shadiest NPCs that they encounter? Maybe they're not shady enough. I don't know.
I'm really curious how old these players are, because what this sounds to me is like they're taking a video game NPC approach to this. Like the NPCs that they're running into are basically just there to like go through a dialogue tree and like give them a quest and they go and do their thing. I will say this, that actually this is fine. This isn't a problem, because it seems like they have incorporated as players into their play style and into their approach to the game the fact that, yeah, okay, cool, some of these characters, these NPCs may be lying to us, but the DM has done a really good job of making that interesting as opposed to annoying, right? You know, like they get in trouble or whatever, this guy lies. And I mean, I think if you have an NPC lie to the players, the NPC is lying to the player characters, and the players go, you know what? We're going to decide not that he's a dick, but that he's still our friend, and he just didn't know better, or somebody lied to him.
Mm-hmm.
Then, you know, as the DM, you've got a couple of options. One, you can say, you know what? You're right. He is your buddy. And he's just he's the terrible judge of character, your undead friend.
Sure.
Getting his information from shady sources and stuff like that. You know, and because all of us have friends who are reliable, you know, like 1 out of 3 times or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But because we're friends with them and, you know, whatever, it's that 1 out of 3 makes it worth it for the other 2 times when maybe they're giving us bad advice or they don't know what they're talking about or something.
Sure,
like
sure.
That. Like I kind of like that they're not so binary about it. Like the second somebody gives them bad information, they're like, you're dead to me. Like, cause like people don't really do that in real life necessarily. I think this is a gift, and what you should continue to do is, you know, every now and then have those NPCs be wrong or be lying or whatever, but always make the result of that, you know, interesting and compelling, as opposed to just completely hosing them because they didn't do an insight check on somebody.
Sure.
Like I think this sounds great to me. This sounds like he's got a great situation going.
Yeah. So my first take on this was that I don't know. Like he says he's a good liar. If you're such a good actor that it seems like you're not lying, you should also be a good enough actor to make it seem like you are lying. So if you really want to just to hold their hand a little bit and get them used to mistrusting NPCs, get a couple of them that are just like super obviously lying. If you have to give them the shifty eyes while you give them the speech, give them the shifty eyes while you give them the speech. Make it two treasure chests. One is a trap, one is treasure, and have them just like have the 50-50 lie. It's like, oh yeah, it's in the left one. You can trust me. It's okay. Big thumbs up. And then mimic. And then after the fight, maybe they'll learn something. And again, I don't know how old these players are, how experienced they are. Like you said, with the dialogue tree, this does sound a little bit like a Skyrim player taking their first foray into D&D. In which case, punish them harder.
Yeah, like so I'm going to push back on that a little bit because I think like there's a balance that you want to walk there. It's cool if you want to have the players push back against you want to have the players like occasionally not trusting somebody or have a reason to be dubious about information they get. But like there's a line there,
of course,
that you don't want to cross it into they don't ever trust anyone that you put in front of them. And that can actually be a little bit of a tightrope that you got to walk there. I mean, that can be a delicate balance. Yeah.
You want to introduce the notion of mistrust and not the default.
You also want to make sure that if they don't figure out that person is lying, that, like I said before, it's going to result in something interesting, maybe something dangerous. They can get in trouble, but it won't like totally hose them in a way that, makes them gun shy of trusting anybody. You want to have that be like an, oh my God, I can't believe you fell for that kind of a situation that they can, afterwards, not necessarily laugh about, but they'll get out of it in a way that doesn't make them feel like, oh my God, now we can't trust anyone.
I'm looking through the comments here, and I found a comment here by user DumDumDM, which may or not be a reference to the Dum Dum Mister story that we told in our first Wholesome Stories. But the TLDR here is that they bring up one of the most underutilized and often forgotten stats on the player sheet. And Jim, do you have any clue what I might be talking about?
Passive insight, passive
wisdom. Yeah.
Passive insight. Mm-hmm.
Passive perception is the thing.
Everybody's always asking questions about passive perception.
Yeah.
But passive insight is sitting right there for when people are trying to put one over on you. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I do, especially because all I'm doing right now is one shots, but the first thing I do after the characters introduce themselves, in character, of course, I get their max HP, I get their AC, and I get their passive perception. And for new players, I'll explain to them. It's like, listen, if I need to sneak up on you, I don't need you to know that I'm trying to sneak up on you. That defeats the purpose of me sneaking up on you. Mm-hmm. But a passive insight is like socially sneaking up on somebody.
Yep. Mm-hmm,
so it's a stat that like never gets used. In fact, I forget how to calculate it. So they suggested that using passive insight just to give them hints and tell them that their character thinks that the NPC is not telling them something. Or maybe deliberately lying or holding something back, depending on how far off they are. And you can even you can quietly roll a deception check versus their passive insight, unless they want to do an active insight check. So that might be a solution too, if they don't start picking up on hints. But I don't think the solution is have the NPC stop lying, because then that's just a boring game. But like, I'm all for continuing to let them walk into traps until they start to learn. How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
That may also be a thing where it's not that you're such a fantastic actor. It's that like if you're friends with these people and you are like IRL, an incredibly open, transparent, and trustworthy person, and then you sit down to be the DM, and your friends who like are just in the default habit of trusting you all the time and assuming you're not lying to them ever. I
don't have that problem.
Well, no, but I, there are people that like if, there's a couple of people I know who, if they were to run a game and they were to just like look me in the eye and say, and he tells you that this treasure map is totally legit. I'd go, well, yeah, of course it is. All right, because you're telling me that.
Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah,
because Joe is telling you that.
Exactly, because Joe is telling me that, even though Joe is, embodying, whatever, Shady McShaderson. Right. So yeah, exactly.
So like I said, our campaign, we recently moved it to in person instead of online. So now we have we have some more FaceTime. Actually, this is only the second time ever that the four of us were in the same room, and the last time was for our DM's bachelor party, and not even for D&D. So, but that's a little side note. Our DM is he's getting pretty good with voices and stuff. He's actually like he's really getting into that kind of that style of DMing, and is absolutely improving. Not that he didn't start bad. He just had two accents that he was good at and stuck with those. So now he's branching out a bit. Oh yeah, everybody was Scottish.
You got your Cockney, you got your Boston.
Yeah, everybody was Scottish.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you go two kingdoms over, still Scottish. But good Scottish. I can't do a good Scottish. Anyway, so we find this guy who's the like interim mayor of this like swamp town, and we got shady vibes from him immediately, mostly because of the way Joe is acting. And I think we haven't resolved this part yet. I still think we're right. But I think it's for the wrong reasons. He hasn't really given us much reason to distrust him other than when we were speaking with him, the DM was a little shady eyed. And we are harping on this thing. I still think he's bad.
That's totally fine, and that's
But I think we got there the wrong way.
That's a great tool in your toolbox to lay that groundwork down for that. Yeah.
It's like instead of turning left, we just made three rights, and we still got to the same spot just by the stupid way.
Exactly.
Which for those of you listening outside of New Jersey, that doesn't make any sense to you, but that's just something we do here in New Jersey. We go three rights to make a left. Look up Jug Handle; it's weird. Anyway, but I think this could be a lot of fun.
This one is posted by user Nerd Big Energy. And yes, and they are looking for advice. It says, what does a DM have to do for a bit of character development? And what they say is, I recently had an epiphany. I'm bored with my multi-year campaign because my PCs are exactly the same people they were when we started. Their circumstances have changed significantly, but their reactions haven't. My players consider themselves role players first and foremost, but they've stopped engaging with each other's characters and are tunnel visioning on the plot in front of them, which both makes me feel like a trained monkey trying to keep them entertained and makes me think they are bored of each other's characters too. So here's my question. Have your PCs shown character development in your long campaigns? If so, how did you make it happen? And this was of particular interest to me because a lot of stuff we get is new DMs or, like I'm starting a campaign. What do I do? Yeah. But this is like, I'm several years in and suddenly I'm realizing this is a thing.
Yeah. Late stage
so
problems.
I was really looking forward to talking about this. Yeah.
We don't
What's
get, we
your
don't
take
get a lot
on
of,
that?
We don't get a lot of late stage problems.
Yeah. What's your take on that?
My immediate thought here, this is my first time hearing this story, so this is just like gut reaction stuff. My immediate reaction would be that if the plot is moving, if the plot is taking over all their role playing, in a campaign that's this long, you should have some space to breathe and have it be less on plot and story and more on character story. So maybe taking a few sessions or even a few months worth of sessions and having less to do with a big bad and more with developing characters. We've talked about having like a home base. That could be one way of doing it. Maybe
that's one of the things. Yeah, absolutely. That I was gonna go back to that conversation we've had a couple of times about how useful that can be. Yeah.
Yep. Maybe if they finish an arc, maybe if they finish like one big bad or one small bad, and they are in between major arcs, there could be some downtime role playing, where whether it's their home base or like if they go back to their respective hometowns for a while, and do things with the riches that they've gotten from their adventures. I've heard of PCs that like they finish the campaign and still keep meeting every week because they want to role play their character starting a farm. That's a little too. I would never do that, but that's not the kind of role player I am. Off the top of my head, that's where I would do where you're like finish a part of the story you're on, get an in between arc, and have that focus on the players a bit, like incorporate parts of the backstory, incorporate stuff that they've learned since the start of the campaign, and kind of see where that goes. I think it's a good place to start.
Yeah, and so like I see this, and there are two immediate thoughts that I have, and one is that I'm going to go back to a thing that I always say when we have these conversations, which is I'm going to talk about emergent backstory, which is this idea that you don't need a ton of backstory when the game starts. You just have to say, why am I an adventurer? Why are we together on this adventure? Maybe one or two questions about like what's going on locally, but that's all you need.
Yeah.
And in fact, the less the PCs give you, the better, because then what you can do is create backstory as you play forward like this. When you hit a lull like this and you realize that the PCs aren't talking to each other, just ask somebody, ask the fighter, who taught you how to fight? Who was the first person to put a sword in your hand? And then they'll, give them a week to come up with an answer. And when they come to you, you turn to the bard and you say, okay, how do you know this famous sword fighting instructor? And then you drop that character in, and you've got a ready-made triangle there that gets them talking to each other, by involving that character. Backstory doesn't have to stop when you start playing the characters. You can keep asking questions, incorporating it, reincorporating it. And, and certainly backstory that you created before, like you said, go back to town.
Yeah.
Have somebody from the town show up and say, oh my God, your deeds have reached us back there. We can't believe that you made good. Just letting you know that there's a great big hole opened that swallowed the fountain in the center of town, and we're all terrified to go down there. Can you come back with your friends and go do that for us? And then you can have, the sweetheart they left behind, and, whatever, the younger, whatever, their sister who falls in love with another PC or something like that. All of that stuff is all stuff you can do. But the other thing that I think you can do with this, even if you don't want to go back and create a bunch of backstory, is when you talk about that kind of tunnel vision on the campaign, usually what that means is you have laid a plot in front of them that is like your plot, that to make progress, to go anywhere in the game, they feel like they have to work on that plot to get anything done to move forward. And what I've done, I would argue probably the most successful campaign I ever ran, I, as much as I could, didn't come up with pre-made stuff. I tried to drive it based on what they were interested in. But there was a thing where we would do an arc of whatever the kind of overarching story was in our big fantasy city. It was like a fantasy megalopolis thing where it all, like the whole game took place in the city and the area underneath it and stuff like this. But we would do like an arc of the main story. And then I would ask each player, what's a story you want to see? However outrageous it is, however crazy you want to make it. And then I would do that spotlight adventure. And because everybody knew eventually they were going to get their own spotlight, they were invested in those spotlight adventures. And the spotlight adventures spawned NPCs that became people that we liked and stuff like that. I mean, and this was literally like, the Dwarven Fighter was like, I want to have a Western. I want to have a dwarf Western where we're like driving cattle and stuff like this.
I want to have a dwarf Western.
So we had a dire cattle stampede through the middle of town and stuff like this, where they were like on the backs of the dire cattle doing a fight against people that were like shooting at them from buildings and the stampede and everything. And so, but the point of that was then like we met some of that character's relatives who were dwarven cowboys. And, we had that whole area and everything. And the other players were super invested in, like, if I just introduced some dwarven cowboys who were just like, here's some dwarven cowboys, they would have gone, dwarven cowboys, cool. But when you introduce dwarven cowboys, one of whom is, the fighter's little brother, and the other of whom is the fighter's dad, who's angry at him that he became a fighter instead of a cowboy like he was supposed to, suddenly everybody's way more invested just because they're connected to another player character, even if it's not connected to them.
Mm-hmm. Everything that you mentioned, and like, and again, I'm going to bring up MadPod, but like, it's just that first campaign is just that good. Everything you mentioned is stuff that they've done. Where like, finding the old love interest, like listen to the Frostwind arc, which is just some of the best storytelling that I've heard. And like, it's not until you just like spelled it out there for me that I even realized that that's what they did. And that's where a lot of the character stuff, not so much the story stuff, but the character stuff really started coming forward. And by the time you hit episode 100, which is over 2 years in the making, you are so invested in these characters.
Yep.
I have pulled over on the highway to sob during like a 20-minute monologue. That's fantastic advice. I got nothing else to add to that. So do that.
Because I've actually run games that have gone 3 and 4 years and stuff like this. And that was what we did in that long running game to engage people. Because, if you're going 6 months, then, a module or two will carry you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really want to get into it long term and you don't want that siloing where it's just plot, you've got to do those callbacks and get their personal stories involved. Yeah.
Cool. And
it's never too late to do that. That's the other thing that's important here, I think, is this is not a thing where like he needs to scrap that game and then do another thing. You can just say, hey, we're going to set the plot aside. It's not going anywhere. And we're going to focus on this for a little while.
Yeah.
And then we can get back to it when you want to get back to it.
Yeah. And that can even go into what I said before about like having in between major arcs.
Yep.
But I do want a dwarf Western.
I'll have to see if we had like, this was 4th edition. So like we had tokens for the dire cattle and all that kind of stuff. It was great. We had a lot of fun with it.
All right, let's do one more of these. I've got one.
What do you got?
I got one from user Viral Tiger 04. And he's asking the real question here. Is it bad to kill a player character on purpose? The text here is, well, let's just read the story. Context. I'm a new DM running my first campaign. We are 3 sessions in, about 11 hours, and one of the players has a very interesting character. Okay, so he's I don't know where this is going, but he wants to remain very mysterious and inform the group that he has a beast within and will try to keep it under control. He's a level 3 transmutation wizard and really wants to be similar to Venom from Spider-Man.
Okay.
His whole sort of personality is to go against the grain of the group and be a mysterious lone wolf. Heard it. He's been asking me many times if I can give him a scenario where he can unleash the beast, aka use a 9th level transmutation spell to turn himself into an ooze golem. I feel like this is overpowered because he hasn't unlocked the spell yet. Well, yeah, you're right.
Yes. Yeah.
This is his first character ever. I couldn't tell. I've tried to talk to him about I try to talk to him about waiting until he unlocks the spell, but he really wants to use it. It's the whole point of his character. Okay. I'm not even going to finish reading this because this isn't about killing a character. This is about vetoing a character when that sheet even hits the table.
Yeah.
Yes, you're a new DM. A milestone for a new DM is saying no to a player's idea for the first time, and it feels so good. Not to shoot down ideas, but to just to remind them. It's like, no, you can't just be the most powerful thing in the world because you said so. There's no story there.
Yeah.
So this story itself aside, because that player, that character should not have been a thing to begin with, and that should have been taken care of in the first place. You made your bed, now you got to lie in it, and if you kill that character, you kill that character. I really don't care. But the question here was that, is it bad to kill a PC on purpose? So I'm going to kind of hijack their question and turn it into my scenario. And this is going to come back to my store one shots, and I have a few players that have been coming to all of them so far, and I'm super thankful for them. Ash and all those guys, if you're listening to the show, I'll see you next week. But I don't know if they actually listen or not. We'll see if they do. Ash, if you are listening and you tell me that you heard this episode and tell me you heard me call you out, I'll let your guy find something interesting. We'll give you maybe we'll drop an extra magic item. I don't know. It's a one shot. Who cares? Yeah. It's a one shot. Who cares? So big thing to keep in mind here is that these are not long running campaigns. These are one shots at a store level with regulars. Mostly it's about I would say like maybe 2 regulars per session, and a lot of new players. So for all of those reasons, I think it is important for players to realize that there are stakes to every fight, especially when the fights ramp up to the when we know. When we just look at the clock and know, like, hey, this session was scheduled till 5:00. It's 4:30. One of us might die. So the last one in particular, we were in this like unicorn's pocket dimension, and everything was made of candy. All the animals were stuffed. It was adorable, and they were tracking down a poacher. And I needed them to know that yes, things are cuddly in this spot, but it's still dangerous. And
Now, yes, that waterfall is Dr. Pepper, but you can still drown in it. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, there was a mechanic built in that, like, if you're putting this into a longer campaign, there's a mechanic built in that, like, all the food is sugary. That they start taking. They get cavities, and you can turn that into like you can turn that into constitution implications.
Dental horror. Yeah. Okay.
So, but I needed the players to know there were stakes. So the one player in particular, and I recall that Ash, I tried very hard to kill him. I really made now Grant, I didn't have the big bad target him just for the sake of targeting him. That'd be DM metagaming. However, he did throw the first fireball, so he had every reason to target him.
Sure.
And I really just made him use all 3 attacks to get him down, hit him for death saves, and someone kept healing wording him and kept bringing him back up. And I think I downed him like 3 times before the fight was over. And then in the second session, we ran it again with new players. I finally did kill one, and it was another one of our regulars, and again threw the first fireball and kind of deserved it. But I needed the new players to know that, like, yeah, your character is not safe. Your character doesn't have plot armor. Except for the Ranger's Mastiff, I gave him plot armor. But not the Ranger, the Paladin. But yeah, is there a situation, Jim, where specifically going for the kill is okay?
Like, I think it depends on the social contract that you guys have established at the start of the game.
Okay.
I run a particular kind of game where I don't like to tell players you can't play this character anymore. And to some extent, there is a way that if at the beginning of the game, everyone agrees, okay, you can get taken down, but failing 3 death saves or getting knocked down to whatever negative hit points or something like that doesn't mean that you have to stop playing that character. There are, like, I will make sure there are ways that you can get raised from the dead, or if it's a TPK, it's not really a TPK, you all wake up naked or something like that. And to some extent, that kind of lets you take the kid gloves off in a way that if permadeath was like I think the question is, I think it is totally okay to incapacitate characters because that's interesting and that's part of the game.
Oh yeah,
but the kind of permadeath thing is, that's a little tougher question.
So this And we'll take my situation in particular. Again, this is a one shot, and in one game we did have
that's a different kind of thing. If at the beginning of the game everybody knows, and especially if there's 10 or 15 minutes left in the game, you don't want to kill a PC an hour into a 4-hour demo, right? No. That's just not. You should know better than to do that.
Not on purpose, but like I've had them I've had them try to die. They didn't know they were trying to die, but I
just hand them another sheet and right. There we go. So
but they weren't trying to die, but like you would think that like with the way they were acting, they might have been trying to die.
Yeah.
But but I agree with you giving them the ways to get out of what would normally be a permanent death, and that's and I agree with that kind of game, especially if you've been playing for a while and you're getting attached to these characters. To where like you go find a high level cleric in the next town over, or something along those lines, or at the very least you get reincarnate, come back as a different race, and that could be a lot of fun too. What I'm really getting at is like going for the kill and not just for the down.
I just don't play that way. I just don't find that fun. I mean, this is one of those things where this is very much a to taste thing. Different tables have different levels of that.
Okay.
When I ran my games in the store, when I owned my game store, we were very careful about calibrating. We had kind of different tables with different DMs.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the kind of story-based, good for younger kids. I had the special needs kids and stuff like that might have been really upset if their character just got killed by a die roll. And so totally. I was a lot more, I was a lot looser and easier on them. But we had one guy that was the like if a PC didn't get killed every session, the players at his table would be disappointed that he was going too easy on them.
Yeah.
But we calibrated that. We were like, what kind of game do you want? And they're like, yeah, kill. Okay, you're going to go over with Mark.
Over to Jason's table. Hi.
Exactly. And if somebody else was like, we want complicated court-based intrigue and stuff like that. Okay, you're going to go over with Sarah, kind of thing like that. And if you're a parent there with a 11-year-old kid on the spectrum that really wants to play D&D but hasn't known where to do that, then come to my table and we'll all work it in and we'll talk it out and that kind of thing. So
I like that a lot.
As long as everybody's on the same page, then you should be okay.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
That's important to get everybody on the same page.
I will say that the player that I did actually kill said that was his favorite session yet. So
character that you killed.
I said what I said, Jim.
Sometimes talking with friends.
So a couple good stories today, man. That's going to do it for DM Academy. Go find everything that we do over at curmudgeonsanddragons.com. Send us your advice-seeking column, whatever, post. Just send us an email and ask us for stuff. Whether you're sending us,
we will advise. Yes,
whether you're asking for advice or you've got your horror story or your wholesome story, or even just want to say hello. It's curmudgeonsanddragonspod@gmail.com, or everything is at curmudgeonsanddragons.com. You can go to the contact and send us a thing on there. We got the little voicemail widget too. You can even read us a story yourself. But that is going to wrap it up for today. Jim, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Goodbye, adventurers.
Thank you for listening to Curmudgeons and Dragons. Please share this with your favorite adventurers. Leave a review on Apple and follow us on social media. All links can be found at curmudgeonsanddragons.com. Practice safe adventuring, my friends.